and birthdays. A lot of us are trying to teach children and work at the same time. And this is especially hard if the child is on an IEP and needs additional support and doesn't have it. I know for my sons, they both had one-on-one aides at school. And the reality of it was that the format that the school district chose at the beginning of the school year was virtual learning. And there wasn't somebody to come to my house and serve in that capacity. So it just ends up falling on the parents a lot of times to get that support and to their kid. And ultimately, in my case, I was able to make a case to the school that it really needed to be an exception made because mine just do not do well with virtual. But I know other parents with kids with IEPs who they might have co-occurring conditions, so a medical condition as well as whatever the learning disability might be. And in that case, you know, those kids, they're medically fragile, or they may have a family member who's medically fragile, and it's not even an option to go to school like the option that I was able to get for my kids. So I think this is just a real challenge for those of us that are special needs parents and trying to support a loved one who's vulnerable. So someone who has a disability or is elderly or has a mental illness. Missing touch, that's a hard one with the physical distancing. It's difficult to work from home and maybe not have a good setup ergonomically, or just the Zoom fatigue that people are feeling from having so many engagements that are on Zoom. Feeling helpless, especially hard for people who have experienced trauma. And then there's unequal impact of COVID-19. So there's the inequities in our community that are exposed. So for me, when COVID-19 hit, and I will never forget the day because it was Friday, the 13th of March, and it was the day when everything canceled. So that was the last day of school. And not only was it the last day of school, but it was also the last day of a lot of services. So school was the first to go, but then different therapies fell off and they were only available in a virtual format after that, which again, just like school, therapy didn't work well in a virtual format for my guys. And then respite care fell off, and pretty soon I didn't have any services. And that really exposed how much I was relying on formal community supports to care for my kids. And I think a lot of us that are special needs parents or caregivers, we feel that because it does take a village, and especially in our cases, we rely on those community supports. There's a proportionally impacting diverse communities. So it's more likely, COVID's more likely to have an impact for those with health conditions, more likely for those that live in densely populated areas and with food deserts. It's less likely if somebody has, health insurance or a primary care clinic nearby, but for a lot of people, that's not a reality. And it's less likely for those that have sick leave or can work from home. And it's more likely in a multi-generational household, and it is more likely in those that work essential jobs. And it definitely disproportionately impacts primary caregivers. And this has all led to heightened anxiety and depression. They say that in the average year, 1 out of 5 people is impacted by a mental health condition. And now the data is suggesting that it is as high as 1 in 4 due to COVID. And that's just now. So, we're just in the first year of COVID. So the data is really suggesting that those numbers will increase, which has led to increased use of alcohol, caregiver fatigue, and increasingly high stress levels. So the impacts of stress. on people's mental health, it's led to feelings of depression, anxiety, mood, irritability, physical health, headaches, stomach aches, sleeplessness, anger, low energy. It can lead to diabetes, heart disease, and high blood pressure. So none of this that I told you is probably new information to you, but I want to highlight it because I think it's something that we all experience to a certain degree. Nobody is going through the last year untouched by this, and especially not those of us that are caregivers. And so what I want to do next is talk about the steps that you can take to better health. And again, like I said before, this is going to be a section where a lot of it's probably not going to be new to you, but I want you to sort of rethink it. And if there are things that you've done before that have been helpful to you, or if there are any new ideas that might be worth trying, sometimes it's good just to have it in front of you again. In the mental health world, we say that mental health is a spectrum. So on one hand, we have mental wellness, and on the other side, we have severe mental illness. And it's a spectrum. So people can be anywhere along that. And we all want to get more towards mental wellness. And these are some of the tools that we can use to work towards mental wellness. So yeah.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but we lost video. So can you hold that thought for
Yeah, sure.
2 seconds and we're going to go back.
I still see video on my end. I don't know if it really is lost on Facebook.
It says your live video has ended. Trying to get it back here. Hold on.
I just heard you say your live videos ended on Facebook, so I think we're okay. The only thing is it's saying that the right side of the screen is cut off on her slides. So maybe, I don't know if you have the chat up, maybe take the chat off, possibly.
Okay, hold on, we're getting it back.
Oops.
Thanks, Nina. Sorry about that.
Yeah, no problem. Okay. Everything's sounding all right now?
I don't think we're back yet.
Okay.
Almost there. Okay, it's giving me everything but the option to go live.
Carlin, if you go to the event, there's a blue bar across that says go live in event.
Yeah, I'm there. I got everything clicked, but the go live button is not giving me the option to click it.
And you have the title on the live in
Yes.
listed. Okay. What about just going live on our actual page? Oh, it's showing live now.
Live.
Oh, Megan says we're live, so I think we're good.
Okay, great. Sorry about that, everybody.
All right, so this is the ultimate end goal, is creating work-life harmony. And so first thing to think about, how are you measuring up to your own and others' expectations? And are they realistic, or are you promising more than you can do? Then kind of taking it down one level, when do you work best? Morning, afternoon? And thinking about your family, when's the best time for your family to work? So how can you structure your day to reflect this? So I know for myself, I'm sometimes working early mornings or later in the evenings because I can't work a full day from, let's say, 8 to 5 because I've got kid obligations in there. And so I can work a full day, but it has to be in chunks. And I have a job that allows for that. So I've just had to sort of work out the times that will make it possible to get all the work done. And then I think a big one is who can provide you support. And so with this reality of COVID, it's really changed some of the formal community support dynamics. And so I've learned to rely more on the less formal. So, who can I have that can provide me periodic childcare so that I can have a break? Who in my family can provide support? And what does that look like? Because it's different now than it was before. So kind of thinking through who are your support people and how can you reach out? Healthy coping strategies, meditation, a lot of people like. Calm and Headspace are two of the apps for that. Yoga, listening to music can really help. Taking a power nap, or even just zoning out in a quiet space, doing a puzzle or a crossword or Sudoku, something that you like that's kind of a mind game, a little bit of a break. Movement. I know right now for me, this is hard with it being cold and short days, less daylight. I really have to push myself to actually move. And so I think sometimes we think of movement as exercise, and some people don't have the best relationship with exercise. But I just want to challenge all of us to think of movement as more than exercise. It doesn't have to be a formal exercise type of movement. It could be walking, it could be dancing. Running and biking are more of a traditional type of exercise, but there's just fun stuff that gets you moving around, and that can be really good too. Nutrition, again, this is just all things that I'm sure you've heard before, but kind of limiting the comfort foods. It's hard. It's really hard in the pandemic. I know I just want to eat all the things that are really good, and I don't always feel the best after that. So I think the key sometimes is just having the healthy snacks easily accessible, remembering to drink water, eating more fruits and veggies, avoiding too much alcohol, and being attuned to how you eat and when you eat, and if you're really hungry or not. Sleep. Sleep optimizes physical, mental, and emotional functioning. And, the experts recommend, if you can, go to bed around the same time every night. Keep a routine for how you go to bed, and check the conditions that help you sleep better. Temperature, lighting, technology, whatever kind of works for you. I know I can't sleep if my feet are cold. And so sometimes I would just lay awake trying to fall asleep, trying to warm up. And I got a heated mattress pad, and that's helped a lot because then I get warmed up quicker. So just little things like that you can do for yourself. Sleep is just precious to us as caregivers. So just do what you can to really, get yourself what you need for sleep. Journaling. So this is kind of interesting. I am not a journaler in the traditional sense, but I always do hear that it's a good thing to do. And I just wanted to share a couple of things that I personally do that I have brought me value. So one is write down your fears, and I would extend this maybe even to write down the things that are on your mind. And what I do is I just keep a pad of paper by my bed. And then if I think of something that I need to remember to do or that I'm worried about, I just jot it down on there. So even if I am trying to fall asleep or I wake up in the middle of the night or something, it just pops in my head, I find that I can let it go more easily if I just jot it down. Another idea, keep a gratitude journal, or I'm expanding this to a gratitude partner. So one thing that I've done, because I'm not a journaler in the traditional sense, I've tried, but I haven't been able to really stick with it, is I got a gratitude partner, and a friend of mine and I have been doing this for a long time now. It's probably been about 2 years. And we try to every day tell each other one thing that we're grateful for. And we have a policy that you can say more than one thing. And the way that we do it is you say one thing and you don't have to explain it. So for that reason, it doesn't take very long and we do it by email. We don't have to spend a lot of time explaining the thing that we're grateful for, but we do have to both take the time to think of it. And so it's a good exercise in gratitude. And honestly, it's kept us closer. She lives out of the country, but one of my best friends from when we were much younger, and it connects you in an interesting way to know these things about someone else's life. So even though I don't always know the reasoning behind the thing that she's grateful for or the explanation, I mean, I could always follow up and ask, but it's just been a really interesting exercise. And we both live pretty challenging life. She has a husband that lives with epilepsy, and so she has a lot of stress in her life too, a different kind of caregiving, but we both have some caregiving responsibilities, and so it's been a good activity for us. And then, connect with your sense of purpose, what makes you tick every day, and what in your life gives you purpose, and taking some time to think about that. And if you can, it's always good for grounding to be able to go back to that. So here's where I want you to use your paper again, or your phone, or some way to jot down some thoughts. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you 30 seconds, and I want you to jot down the things that come to mind. So what makes you happy, what brings you joy, and what fills your bucket. And I'm going to give you an example of what I'm looking for that I did so that you can see what I'm thinking of. So for me, it would be my dog, being outdoors, blankets, coffee, audiobooks, and sunshine were the things that I thought of in 30 seconds. So I want you to go, starting now, and I want you to just jot down a list for yourself of things that make you happy. Okay, so if you can feel free to keep adding to that list if you want. What I use this list for, and I have a much bigger list that I have thought of over time, is when I'm feeling the caregiver fatigue, when it's like noon on a Saturday and I've got 8 more hours with kids, I'm like, okay, what are some things that make me happy? And I can look at this list and I can say, what can I do right now to make me feel more energized, more happy? And a lot of times there's something on that list that you can access right then and there. So, you know, right now I couldn't go outdoors, but I could pet my dog, or I could get under a blanket, or I could go make some coffee. So those are all things that are small things, but that, you know, you can access from your list that make you happy and that you can do in that moment. So volunteering and giving back can really be a good outlet. So you can join an advocacy group, make masks, help with a food drive, write a kind note to someone, donate blood, or just reach out to others in your community. Staying connected. This is huge, right? Especially during COVID. So connecting with friends and family, doing phone calls, video calls, texting, being creative and playing games together, or having a happy hour together or a meal. One of the things that my parents, they live out of state, but that we've been doing with the kids is we'll connect via FaceTime and they'll play a game that both we have and they have. So something like Uno, or really anything with a deck of cards they can do. And they'll do that with the kids, and it's a fun thing for both of them. My parents, you know, they are older, so they've been limiting, you know, they're doing the social distancing, they've been limiting their interactions with people. So it's good for them. And then, of course, the kids love to play games. So it's been a very positive thing. Then connecting with your faith community or support groups. And then I just liked this graphic, and it's some of the things that we already talked about. And one thing that I find for myself is that if you look over in the second column, it says read, which I do read a lot, and I listen to a lot of audiobooks. And I thought that it was especially interesting that they have the next one, which is read about people whose lives are more complicated. And I actually find that if I read about somebody that is having even more of a struggle than I am in my life, it actually is really grounding, because it just reminds me of people having a lot of struggle and just kind of gives me context for my life. So I thought it was interesting that that made the list, and that that is something that I have also found to be valuable. All right, so I'm going to transition to the third section, which is when should we worry and what should we do? So when to worry when it comes to mental health. If you or a loved one is feeling numbness, disbelief, anxiety, or fear, if you're feeling that have been changes in appetite, energy, and activity levels, difficulty concentrating, difficulty sleeping, nightmares or upsetting thoughts or images, physical reactions like headaches, body pains, stomach problems, or racing heart. If you have a chronic health condition and that has been getting worse, or if you're finding yourself more angry or more short-tempered than you would normally feel, or increased use of alcohol, tobacco, or other drugs. And I want to put in the disclaimer that I am not a mental health clinician, but these are some of the things that I have been told by mental health clinicians that people can be looking for, especially if you're seeing an increase in these or a combination of factors. So what do you do when you see that in someone that you love, or what do you do if you feel that yourself? I think one of the first things is tell your support system that you're struggling. Sometimes, and I think this is a caregiver thing for sure, we're really good at putting on a happy face and acting like everything's okay. And so I don't think that our networks necessarily know that we're struggling. And so we have to be able to share that we're struggling. And then if your support system knows that you're struggling, then you can use them to help reduce your stress levels. You can tell your manager that you're struggling if it's impacting your work, and learn about what EAP, employee assistance programs, are available to you. And you can get help. So check out therapists who are in your network. And how you can help others. So admitting that you have your own struggles, I think is really big, and it takes away some of the stigma that exists around mental health, where people feel like they can't talk about it. So when we admit our own struggles, then it normalizes it, right? It gives other people permission to say, yeah, I've been really struggling too. Sharing concerns, and some of the language that I can recommend for that is something like, I've noticed you aren't responding as quickly to emails. How are you doing? Is anything going on? And just something about what you've noticed, and ask them a question and just see how they're doing. Reach in and ask how they are, and what they found to be difficult lately, and offer support. And the thing that I think is the most helpful in terms of offering support is asking something to them, like, how can I best support you right now? What can I do that might help? And that way, since different things help everybody else, sometimes, we want to rush in and do something that we think might help them, but it's really best to ask, how can I support you, or what would help you? So when it comes to suicide, suicide is just really a struggle that, I think the numbers have been increasing, and then you add COVID into the mix, and it has just been a point of despair for a lot of folks. And this can impact anyone. So I think the key to it is expressing empathy and offering hope. Another misconception about suicide is that talking about it might increase the risk of it. Talking about it actually doesn't increase the risk. The reality is that those that are having suicidal ideations are already thinking about suicide, and you talking about it is actually going to potentially help the situation, as opposed to plant the seed for an idea. Listen non-judgmentally and let them know that you care and that you're willing to get them help. And don't try to do it yourself. If it's feeling uncomfortable beyond what you can handle talking with them about it, you can get mental health professionals involved and others involved. Don't promise secrecy, especially, I think this is important if you are working with youth, interacting with youth, and making sure that parents and caregivers know that the child is struggling. And if persuasion fails, or even as a resource to people, there are hotline numbers available, and I'm going to share some of those in a minute. But there are also emergency services, and that is something that I do not think people should be ashamed of. If you are not well and you are afraid, or you are afraid for someone that you love that they may die by suicide, call 911 or go to your emergency department, because it's a very serious concern. So here's some of the numbers. So the crisis text line, you can text 741-741. There's also a national suicide hotline, and that number is there. And then a local Iowa resource is Your Life Iowa, and they are a crisis warm line. So you can call them at the first number there, or you can text them at the second number. So that takes me to NAMI Iowa. What do? We offer classes, support groups, and presentations on mental health. We also have a helpline that's available Monday through Friday, 8:30 to 4:30. And so what our helpline, which the number is listed here, what they can help you with if you live in Iowa is they can help you get connected to resources or get you a referral to a care provider. And the person that answers the phone, they are a trained peer person, so they are someone with lived experience, and they're very good at being able to help people find what they need, and covering all topics related to mental health. NAMI Iowa also does a lot of advocacy work. Some of that is legislative advocacy work, but we also really try to get people opportunities to plug in to create change within the community. And we do events. So we have a walk every year, which is a really fun community event. And we do a couple other events throughout the year. We do one that's a Day on the Hill and another fundraising event called Beautiful Minds. Our website is here. I'm putting it up here in case you'd like any more information on those things. And then on the next slide, I'm going to talk about a few more specific ways that you can get involved with NAMI Iowa if mental health is an area that you would like to learn more about or access any of our resources on it. So we have an advocacy email list, and this is something that you can sign up for on our website. And what will happen once you're on the list is that once a week you will get an email during the legislative session from our executive director, and she will give you an action item for the week that you can participate with, and she'll give you information on what's happening on the Hill around mental health. You can attend one of our events that I was mentioning. You can sign up for our newsletter, and that is via email, and that's also on our website. You can join an affiliate. So we are the state organization, but there are many local affiliates around the state of Iowa. We have 15 of them. So not all counties are served by an affiliate, but many of them are. And if you live outside of Iowa, there is also in the other states, there's also a state organization and local affiliates. That's our model of operation. And so a lot of the programming that we offer is offered by the local affiliates. And we at NAMI Iowa can connect you to somebody that is in your area. So if you call us or email me, then I would be very happy to get you connected with local resources. You can also be a sponsor if you have a workplace that would support a mental health initiative. We have sponsorship opportunities for our walk and for our annual conference and some other things. We love volunteers, and that is actually what makes NAMI unique, is that all programs are offered by people with lived experience. So either those that live with a mental illness or are a loved one of somebody living with a mental illness. That is the criteria for our program leaders, is that they have to identify as someone with lived experience. But we use volunteers in all capacities, so we would love to connect with you if that's something that you might be interested in. And we have many programs, and most of them have been converted to virtual programs. So no matter where you are in the state, or even if you're outside of the state, we do have programs that you can access, and they are free. So we would love to get you connected with something. So with that, I am happy to take any questions you have, and I put my contact information here. Feel free to reach out to me if you need anything. Can't hear you, Ashley.
Sorry, I was still on mute. Thank you. Thank you very much, Nina, for sharing your tips and tricks. I know I wrote down quite a few that I think would be relevant and in anyone's life, not just, caregivers. So hopefully your tips can reach our Spina Bifida Association of Iowa community and beyond. So far, we don't have any questions in the Facebook Live, but if you have a question, please type them in to the Facebook Live feed, and I will ask Nina here live. Nina, what would you say is, so if you're having a challenging day where you're being pulled in a lot of different directions, what would be your go-to, what's the first thing that you try to kind of ground yourself?
A lot of times I try to think of what is it that's stressing me out right now? Like, what is the thing that's making me agitated? Because I find that if I can pinpoint the thing that is stressing me out, then a lot of times once I've identified it, I can get in a better mental headspace. And so for me, that often looks like, jotting things down in a notebook or making a note on my phone or texting a friend what's bothering me, just so that I can make record of it and move on with it. So that'd be one thing. And then if it's just a really busy day and there's just a lot happening, then I tend to break my day into whatever sort of compartmental unit I can mentally fathom. So I actually have a tattoo on my arm and it says one blank at a time. And I have that because I want to think like, okay, do I need to take it 1 minute at a time right now, or 1 hour, or 1 day at a time? And sometimes with kids, it really is 1 minute at a time. But more realistically, I think I'm more of a 1 hour at a time kind of person. So thinking like, okay, I've got 4 hours until they go to bed. I just need to make it through 4 hours. And if 4 hours seems too big, then I need to say like, okay, I need to make it through 1 hour. And in 1 hour, I'm going to do this thing. And sometimes that's where I kind of incorporate my happy list, where it's like, okay, if you do this for 1 hour, then you can have some coffee, or you can have, you know, whatever, a snack or something. And it just helps me to break apart my day like that, so I can just get through it by thinking of it in smaller increments.
Yeah, absolutely. I know one thing that, you know, is something that I experience frequently, and I know that others, parents of kids with spina bifida deal with, is that, you know, that anxiety that comes with, you know, is my child's shunt malfunctioning? Does my child have a UTI, or is my child just going through something that's normal for a child, for any child to have? And you know, that anxiety of the unknown, or things that are out of our control, can sometimes consume us. So,
Yes.
you know, can you talk a little bit, you know, how we can deal with those stresses that come up pretty quickly? And, you know, I feel like our adrenaline starts pumping because we're going into that mode where we just have to, you know, figure out the solution, go through steps. Is there things that we can prepare ahead of time, or have in mind for when, you know, our child may be very sick quickly, or we think that there's something medically going on that needs attention right away? How can we prepare for those moments?
Yeah, so two thoughts on this. One would be creating community. I think has been really, really critical for me to surviving all of this. So getting connected into organizations like the Spina Bifida Association, like NAMI, Facebook groups have been really important to me, because then you have access to very specific types of groups that are all people that get it, right? Because they live a similar type of experience. And sometimes that's hard to find in our local communities, people that really understand. So if you can be a part of groups that are more specific, but maybe serve a much larger geography, I found that's valuable. And I think just finding a few key people that you trust that get it, that when you say like, hey, I'm going to panic because of whatever, they're not going to tell you to just settle down, it's going to be fine. They're like, oh, wow, talk to me about that, you know? And they may be able to talk you off the ledge, but because they've lived it, they understand, like, this isn't just a small deal. This is your reality right now. And whether how fathomable or not it is in that exact moment, they understand the stress of it. So on that note, the other point that I want to bring up is that I'm a very optimistic person by nature, but I find that when it comes to caregiving for my kids that have very high mental health needs and behavioral challenges, that I often find myself preparing for the worst. And if it's anything better than that, then I'm happy, right? Because it wasn't as bad as I imagined it could be. And I never fully understood this mentality. I just kind of thought like, okay, this is a thing I do, and maybe people perceive it as pessimistic, but it helps me, like it gets me through. And I was actually just listening to a book called The Originals by Adam Grant. And it was talking about in the book how all of these entrepreneurs and very successful people have what they've attributed to their success. And actually, this concept was one of the things that they attributed to success, was this ability to mentally prepare for crisis situations or things not going the way you planned. So the way I look at it, and I was never really fully able to articulate this until I read this book recently, is that it's not really that I have a negative outlook on life. It's just that mentally, in order to make it through it, I have to be prepared in case. And I think that a lot of us experience this as caregivers, that, you know, we have to be prepared for the worst or we might not survive it mentally, you know? And so if we can just get ourselves in the right headspace to be prepared to brace for what we need, what we anticipate could happen, then we get through it. And that's really what I attribute my success to over all the years and all the struggles and just the difficulty of day to day, is that I'm able to mentally prepare and brace for challenges. And often it's not nearly as bad as I think it might be, but I also am realistic enough to know worst case scenario so that I can be prepared for that should I have to be prepared for that. And certainly there's also caregiver PTSD, which is a very real thing. And a lot of us that have experienced crises know that with our kids, that is a real thing. So what I also want to say is that your mental health as a caregiver is really important to pay attention to. And so as you were talking and asking the question, the issue of anxiety came up. And I just want to say to anybody out there that is feeling like the anxiety is unmanageable using some of these techniques, that there are other treatments that you can use, that you can have for anxiety. There's therapies, there's medications, there's combinations of things. And so I just encourage you to continue to experiment, ask questions, seek medical help if needed, because sometimes anxiety is more than you can manage yourself on your own. And there are a lot of resources out there, and there's truly no shame in asking for that or exploring it, because we as caregivers have an incredible amount of stress that's put on us.
Yeah, absolutely. A couple of things from that. What was the name of the book again that you mentioned that you just finished?
It's called The Originals. And the author is Adam Grant.
Perfect. I will add it to my, hopefully it's available on audio.
Yeah, it's available in audio. And I think working for a large ag company, Ashley, you'll appreciate it. It was interesting from that perspective too.
Perfect, great. And then the second thing that I wanted to point out is Nina mentioned connecting with groups and connecting with groups on Facebook. And one of our initiatives this year for the Spina Bifida Association of Iowa is really to build our Connect groups that we have through our Facebook page. If you go to our page and then click on groups, there are several of them that exist that are, they're all private groups. So once you join, things that you discuss in there are private with the people that are in the group. And there's one for parents of teens. There was ones of parents of kids. There is one for adults with spina bifida. There's another one for just our entire community. And so our goal is to have that as a resource for our community to be able to connect with, but ask questions and lean on each other during difficult times or asking for advice. I know that there are national groups that exist, but those of us that are local and like to gather together in non-pandemic times to connect and have our community. We're going to try to bring that community online, especially during these times where we're having to do our remote and online meetings and webinars like this. So just another plug for our Connect groups, and I look forward to connecting with you there. So as of now, we don't have any more comments here for Nina or questions in the Facebook Live, but I would continue to ask them here in the Facebook Live if you're watching the replay. We will go back and check, and we can connect with Nina and get some answers to your questions if you have them later. I would also like you to thank those of you that are tuning in live tonight, and also thank those that are watching the replay, whether on Facebook or later on our YouTube channel. We are excited to offer this webinar series for you in 2021. Again, if you have any suggestions for future topics, please also let us know here or contact Carlin with the Spina Bifida Association of Iowa. So with that, Nina, I would like to thank you very much for taking the time tonight to present to us and talk to us a little bit about wellness for the caregiver. I really appreciate your time, and it's good to chat with you again.
You too. Thanks for the opportunity. And take good care,
Thanks,
everyone.
Nina. Yes, absolutely. All right, that concludes our first webinar. Thank you again for joining. Have a great night.
Thanks, Nina.
Bye.
Bye, thank you.